I live in Mexico. I'm retired. I live in Manitowoc.
Okay,
I put
that's
children through the school system here.
That's good.
Last time I came to visit you folks was 5-6 years ago when I lived in Manitowoc. I'm up here visiting, and I was told about what's going on in Washington, in Manitowoc, and in Wisconsin. I was reading this: inspiring education, empowering community, unleashing potential. We teach our kids to look at, let's say, poison. And, oh, wow, that's poisonous. Don't drink it. You get it in your eyes, wash your eyes out. Because that's what it says on the label. The mask, if you look at the boxes, it says it doesn't protect against COVID. You're all involved in the school system. I hope you read the instructions. Okay? Doesn't work. It doesn't work. If you want to have masks, make it optional. Because I'm sure there's some people with masks. They probably want their kids to be masked. But those, obviously, there's a bunch in your community that say no. Okay? I'm a Hispanic male, living in Manitowoc, going to church in Manitowoc for many years. I come and visit family and friends, but I don't see many Hispanics here. So allow me to say a few words for them. Esto de las máscaras está muy mal. Está muy mal. La ciencia dice que las máscaras no funcionan. Espero que lo hagan y que ya paren con las tonterías. Thank you.
The next person I have is Jeanette Desheen, 1602 South 15th Street in Manitowoc.
So my kids were looking forward to the first day of school. 6 days before school started, Mr. Holtzman, you decided to make masks mandatory. On the first day of school, I walked my children across the street. As soon as we were greeted by their teachers, they asked us to put a mask on before we walked onto school property, and I said, my kids aren't going to be wearing masks. We don't own any. We've been sent away from school every single day. My children have been denied an education every single day because we don't want to wear a mask. One of my children has an individual education plan, and it's been proven that masks don't allow a child to read facial expressions. He has problems with agitation, concentration, and I guess we could call it anger. And I don't blame him, because I'd be angry too if I was masked all day in an 80-degree classroom, not being able to breathe. The other option that we were given was virtual learning. Luckily, right now, I am at home during the day, so I can do that for my children. But there are so many parents here that are working parents that they don't have that option. They don't have the childcare. They don't have that option to stay home with their kids to learn. It's not a reasonable accommodation. And by law, it's the same for all of us employees who are facing termination right now because we won't get a vaccine. They need to be allowed religious and medical exemptions. That is not happening. And if we can't approve an exemption, they should be given a reasonable accommodation. What reasonable accommodation does the school board, or do you, I don't even want to put the school board on blast here because there are two sitting here right now that I know support us. What reasonable accommodations do you have to offer? And that needs to be public knowledge for every one of us to make a reasonable accommodation for our children, because this is not working for us.
The next individual is Eli Hardgraff, 2826 South 15th Street, Manitowoc.
All right, so he was very nervous to read the whole thing, but we wrote this more kids geared, so everybody would hopefully understand. Do you want to read just the first one then?
Masks do not work. It says it right on the box.
And if I may finish the rest, I would like to give an example of how unfair your masking mandate is. A couple of weeks ago, we were at Bay Beach. Some people were masked, some were not. Everyone there was there to have a good time. I witnessed no hatred, no segregating. There was also a family with 2 young children with backpack leashes on. One was clearly autistic. For their safety, the parents had chosen to leash their children. It's not something I would do, but it was a parental choice. Should we all now leash our children for safety? No. It is each parent's decision based on each child's need. There are some autistic and ADHD children now being denied the right to learn with others and receive proper socialization. It is statistically proven that kids, while socializing and having fun and being engaged in learning, learn better. Don't deny our kids this. Thank you.
Jason Johnson, 314 North 8th Street, Manitowoc.
How's it going? My name's Jason Johnston. I have an amazing 4-year-old son. He's starting school next year. So I'm here so I can hopefully get ahead of this issue. I'm also a local business owner. I manage and operate construction crews around this country, both for commercial and military contracts. So, like I said, it's a construction company. I don't tell my guys how to babysit their kids. I don't tell them what they should be doing off the field. I don't pretend to be a professional in fields I'm not a professional in. Educators need to educate. We need to leave parents to parent.
The next speaker is Lyda Snake. I hope I got that right. 1117 South 25th Street, Manitowoc.
It's actually Schnocky, but that's okay.
Okay, Stocky? Okay, sorry.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. I know this meeting is about students wearing or not wearing masks, but I am coming to you. Pardon me if I get emotional because I begin this with my kids, and I get emotional when I talk about my kids. From the perspective of the deaf and hard of hearing children. My son is in middle school and has a bilateral severe to profound hearing loss. With his hearing aids, his right ear hears 75% of spoken words correctly. His left ear only hears 65%, and this is unmasked speech. My daughter is in elementary school and is profoundly deaf. With her cochlear implants, she still has a mild hearing loss. Both of my children were noticeably reading lips at age 4, and I'm sure you can see where I am going with this. When I told my son they were going to have to wear masks, he literally cried and asked, "Mom, how am I going to see people's faces?" Yes, both of my kids, my children, have interpreters. Some of the deaf and hard of hearing kids in this district don't. However, my children's interpreters are not with them the entire school day. And if their interpreter has to step out of the classroom, all means of instruction has now been taken away from them. This district is already short on interpreters, and if one gets sick or takes a vacation, there is going to be at least one child without an interpreter. From personal experience, PI interpreters, which are usually called in if an interpreter becomes ill, which have to come from Milwaukee, are not always available. And there have been times my son has gone without an interpreter. Clear front masks do not work. They fog up very quickly, obstructing the view. And even if they did, none of their peers have them, making them miss out on important social learning skills, which social skills is actually listed in my son's IEP. They say follow the science. Real-time local science is showing me that last week, the Green Bay School District, that is mask mandated, had 900 kids out due to COVID. On August 24th, so before school even started, Manitowoc County had 41 cases of COVID. On September 10th, we had 42. Throughout this duration, the number has been as high as 50 and as low as 15. And most of the high numbers were Mondays, which are a 3-day count. In the lunch line and during lunch, the kids do not wear masks. And up until yesterday, the water fountains were on for everyone to drink from. Yet the numbers have not drastically changed. The science is telling me that the masks are not having the effect that they are reported to have. There are some parents and kids who feel more comfortable wearing masks, and they should do so. However, for a lot of kids and people, that is not the case anymore. Masks for a lot of kids, both special needs and non-special needs, have become a hindrance to both their classroom learning and their social skills. This science is why I believe masks should not be mandatory, but optional. On a side note, an email or text should be sent to parents informing them about the water shutoff and asking them to please send a water bottle with their child. I have not received a notification from any of the 3 schools my children attend, and I'm sure there's a lot of parents that are not aware their child does not have access to drinking water during the day. Thank you for your time.
Jessica Lance, 1901 Walden Boulevard, Manitowoc. Is Jessica here?
I didn't see her.
Okay, then we'll move on. Tony, and I don't know how to say her last name, but I think Tony probably knows who he is. 825 North 13th Street, Manitowoc.
Good evening. I understand the superintendent has decided to listen to some science and ignore the other data that goes against the mainstream COVID fear-mongering. Disappointingly, I understand the school board voted 5-2 in favor of this. I am here today to present the other side and why masking should be optional and left for parents to decide. First, let's look at the impact on our kids. According to the CDC, from August 2020 to August 2021, 1,790 kids across the country were hospitalized with COVID. The median stay was 2 to 3 days. Of those, 8 died. That's a 0.4% death rate of those admitted. To put things in context, more kids die from the flu each year and other illnesses, and we never made masks mandatory then. In 2019 through 2020, there were approximately 434 influenza deaths for children aged 0 to 17, and similar numbers in 2018 to 2019. Data from Sweden, they actually kept schools open there with no masks required. From March through June of 2020, they had over 1.9 million children in school. Of those, only 16 went to the ICU, and no child died. Fewer than 10 preschool and 20 school teachers went to the ICU for COVID in that time. They've had similar outcomes to other countries without having any mask mandates. There's a huge cost to children and families whose quality of education is being disrupted over unnecessary burdens and restrictions due to the COVID response. Who knows what this impact will have long term? There have been 47 studies that confirm the ineffectiveness of masks as it relates to COVID transmission. Recently, there was a study in Florida that looked at masks on children after wearing them one day in a classroom setting for 8 hours. What they found was amazing. This could actually make children sick having to wear masks all day. 32 more studies confirmed their negative health effects. Again, this could actually make our children sick. So I asked the board, who will be responsible for the potential long-term effects? This is a huge potential legal liability on the school district and taxpayers for forcing a policy that may have long-term negative health effects. Humans are not meant to wear masks all day. This also opens the door for a class action lawsuit. There's no compelling evidence kids are spreading COVID or that COVID is a serious threat to them. Did I mention kids aren't dying? Second, let's look at the numbers in our own community and how other schools in our community and state are handling. Since March of 2020, there have been approximately 99 COVID deaths in Manitowoc County. There have been 0 in the last 7 days.
Manitowoc Lutheran High School, Two Rivers High School are mask optional. Kids aren't dying over there. Approximately 75% of Wisconsin high schools are mask choice. In closing, the CDC and public health officials are not the sole arbiters in personal risk assessment or health decisions. They have been wrong a lot. American citizens demand liberty and choice over mandates when it comes to personal health decisions. Many parents and students disagree with the universal masking policy. And if you're going to be honest with yourself, it does not follow all the available data or science. The prudent move liability-wise for the school district would be to allow for mask choice, as countless other districts are successfully doing right now. If you want to teach these kids how to think critically, it starts with leadership. Look in the mirror and objectively consider all the data available. Stop the insanity now, or you will leave no choice for tax-paying, law-abiding parents and citizens than to pursue alternative legal means to end your unconstitutional overreach and replace you with public servants that consider the concerns of all their constituents prior to implementing a highly questionable and universal one-size-fits-all approach. Thank you.
And loophole 1619 Orchard Drive, Manitowoc.
One more thing, Dave, could you please at least pretend to pay attention to these people?
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And the rest
Vice versa. Exactly.
On the second day of school, my son, my senior son, was one of 50 to 60 kids ordered to quarantine because of close contact or exposure to a student who contracted COVID the first day. I reached out to this entire board and some administration by email, and thank you, Colin, and thank you, Stacy, for responding. The rest of you, very poor, no response. That's very disappointing. I researched the CDC website to find more about this quarantine criteria, and it specifically said the exemption to having to quarantine in the K-12 setting was if they were all masked. No need, which, as you know, they were. I was able to speak to Mr. Holtzman about this, and he stated it doesn't apply because these kids were in prolonged contact at less than 3 feet from one another. First of all, I understand there's been funding given to the district for COVID protocols. What are you doing to prevent this from happening? On Be My Guest, Mr. Holtzman stated they put smaller class sizes into effect. I'm wondering, is that the case at Lincoln? And I don't want to hear there's too many kids and not enough space. Your job is to ensure our kids get the education they're entitled to. Get creative. Move them outside, to the gym, to the library, wherever. We don't want this to happen. 10 days out of school. Ridiculous. Secondly, I'd like to know if you're tracking those kids that were quarantined, how many of them got sick? Mine didn't, and he doesn't know a single other child that did. So this would be good information going forward to determine, is this necessary to keep our kids out of school for 10 days? My son also missed his youth apprenticeship for that 2 weeks. The Waukesha School District did away with contract tracing because they found 97% of the kids never got sick. Another issue is this exclusion of non-vaccinated kids. We're all about equity, right? At the last meeting, Mr. Trask himself mentioned a wedding where the guests were all vaccinated, 6 or 7 ended up with COVID. We all know the vaccinated still get and spread the illness. So why is my son discriminated against? We've had COVID, he's got antibodies, he didn't get sick, but he's excluded. Why is no one talking about natural immunity and wellness? My last concern is a week before school, this mask mandate was put into place, which should be optional, but there was no other protocol like virtual learning or distancing put into place. And again, Mr. Holtzman on Be My Guest, glossing over a caller who had a concern about the virtual learning, saying, well, they have Google Classroom. Make no mistake, that is not virtual learning. That is a list of your homework assignments. That's not access to a presentation and a discussion. And the culture, one teacher reached out to my son and did a Google Meet where they all could participate. One, in the entire 2 weeks. Mr. Tennis himself did a presentation for seniors. I had a request to get that email to my son. I want to remind you, the school board, you're elected by us to represent us, to be the voice for our kids. And I don't think you've been doing that very well. And I would like to hear the answers to my question on how this is going to be handled going forward. Thanks for your time. Seriously.
Kyle DeRoche, 3327 Cimarron Court, Manitowoc.
All right, good evening. My name is Kyle DeRoche, and I've been a resident of Manitowoc in one way or another for the past 35 years. I've come here tonight to speak with the board in regards to the recent mask mandate enforced by the school superintendent. There is no doubt that COVID exists, and no one is questioning that. However, there is a large group of parents, myself included, that are questioning the practices that are being forced upon our children. By issuing a mask mandate, you effectively remove the parents' right to choose how to care for the well-being of their children. The job of a school is to educate, period. Other services provided by the school may be seen as an asset, but when it comes to the health of my child, I will choose what's right. I would find it strange and questionable if anybody relied on the Manitowoc Public School District as their primary form of health care. Now, most that are in favor of the mask mandate will argue that their right to not be afraid is just as valuable. To that, I would counter, if you are so fearful of this virus, you cannot argue that the safest way to prevent the spread of COVID is to not be in public unless absolutely necessary. So you and your family should stay home. Those of us not choosing to live in fear want to get on with our lives. As for the criteria used to measure the issuance of a mask mandate, I have a few questions that I would like answered. Last meeting, a board member stated that if we don't know if masks are the right solution, why don't we just mandate them and then remove them when we feel it's safe? Based upon what criteria? Is this now just something that's up to the feelings of the board? Because if it's up to how the board feels, then why isn't it up to me to make my decisions that are best for my family? Do you view the parents as less competent than yourselves or unable to make the best decisions for our children? In mid-August, against the recommendations of the CDC, the board held a meeting in which every person on stage was without a mask. Now, you may say, but I'm vaccinated, to which I would reply, not so fast. As per the CDC guidelines, anyone who is in a public space and not practicing social distancing, which none of you were that night, should wear a face covering to prevent the spread of COVID, regardless of vaccination status. See, even you as the board have never really adhered to the recommendations of the CDC 100%. But now you allow the superintendent to issue a mask mandate and fall back on the guidelines of the CDC for raising this. You see where we as parents are getting upset? Now let's talk about the children, because that's the real reason we're here. We as parents care about the well-being of our children. My son legit asked me, Dad, are you still fighting for me not to wear a mask? I can't blame him. In August, we had a board member sit up front and tell us she didn't want to wear a mask while not wearing a mask, and then in the next breath talk about mandating them to kids because they wouldn't want to either. Yikes. Sounds pretty authoritarian to me. See, these kids, they really do watch what you do and say. Everywhere they go, almost no one is wearing a mask. But when they go to one place, they will spend the most of their youth, they're forced to wear a pointless piece of cloth over their face. My last point that I would like to make with this mandate is, when does this stop? What is your acceptable threshold for death? So, because if it's 0 deaths, then why didn't we wear these masks during the flu season since I was a kid in school here? According to the CDC, these masks help prevent the spread of the flu last year. Will this be an every year situation, or are the 40 to 60,000 flu deaths acceptable, but not the 400,000 deaths? Is your magic number of dead Americans somewhere in between? And then, who will let us parents choose what's right for us again? Or how does this work? You see, you guys don't actually have answers and have never provided real solutions to ending this charade. And that's why we as parents don't want you making a choice for us. Remove the mandate.
Nice.
Darian Katarabik, 802 South 28th Street, Manitowoc.
Hi, everyone. We are really all living in really trying times right now. I have worked with children and families for the last 10 years. And I have attended some of the recent board meetings. The truth is, honestly, I don't know what the right thing to do about the mask is. I think someone here said that it's not a one size fits all thing, and obviously that's true. I know someone made a comment about Dave not making eye contact while people are talking, but I bet you wouldn't say that to an autistic child. So I think that everyone needs to remember that we are all human, and that in order
Let her
to
speak.
come up with a
I like the rest of you
solution,
speak.
we need to be civil with each other. So with that, I want to extend some grace and gratitude to the entire school board. A lot of decisions that have to be made on governing boards are not easy, but you are all elected onto this board by the people of this town. So overall, in general, my thought is that I trust the decisions you make to be correct, and if they are a mistake, that those are corrected. I am not going to speak further on the mask mandate. There are other concerns that I do have based off of, I guess, more current things going on with the children and families that I care about. One thing that I want to address is the equity situation. I've been hearing equity be a catch-all term, which is really troubling for me because we do have equity in our schools and we do need equity in our schools. Special education, ADA accessible buildings, sign language, all of that is equity. So that is troubling for me. But going on with that, there just needs to be equitable responsibility within the school, because it's that is going to address the academic gap that is happening within our school district right now. It's not pretty, but to deny diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's aspects of that that are causing that academic gap. Kids who are homeless, poverty, kids who are experiencing life different than the kids who, all of you are here tonight advocating for your children, and I think that is amazing. But I work with children who have been taken from their homes because they don't have parents to do this for them. So I think it's important for everyone to remember that not all kids are as lucky as yours, and that we need to come up with a solution that does work for everybody. Thank you.
Natasha Khan, 1241 Meadowbrook Drive, Manitowoc.
Hello, I'm Natasha Khan, Vice President of Lakeshore United Visionaries. As of this Friday, the U.S. has had 661,000 deaths from COVID-19. The U.S., including Manitowoc County, is currently at a high level of community transmission of COVID-19. Pediatric infections and hospitalizations have increased in recent weeks in the U.S. As of September 13, 2021, the CDC has received reports of more than 4,661 children in the United States who have been diagnosed with multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children, a rare but serious condition that develops after a COVID-19 infection. And as I said, the source is CDC. COVID-19 vaccinations aren't available yet for the 50 million American children who are under 12 years old. The FDA anticipates vaccines to be available for children in fall or winter. For the time being, the strategies we've learned to use throughout the pandemic will keep kids safer. Masking, proper ventilation, frequent testing, and vaccinating as many adults and adolescents as possible will all help lower infection rates among children. The goal is to keep more kids out of the hospital and to help them avert the virus's still unknown long-term consequences. And something else to note is hospitals are severely overrun across the country with COVID-19 patients. This means less beds for other patients and longer wait times. We can help by masking up and getting vaccinated. Lakeshore United Visionaries believes in science, peer-reviewed sources and data, and recommends listening to the medical experts to keep everyone, especially children, safe. To MPSD, we support you in mandating masks and encourage you all to stay firm with the decision. Masking saves lives. Thank you for your time.
Ashley Phipps, 2402 Franklin, Manitowoc.
Hello, my name is Ashley Phipps, and I have two children. Both go to public schools in Manitowoc. And I appreciate what you guys do, so I would say that. You guys are human, and they are all human. And I have claimed independent most of my voting life. I don't side with Republican or a Democrat. I side with solutions. People are individuals. These children are individuals. They all have special, different needs, various, and our country is founded on allowing everybody the opportunity to figure out who they are, what their views are, to grow, develop your own opinions, and to figure out where you gather that information, and to restrict certain things. Anyway, the whole system is in order to hear the whole public, to speak and to be a voice of even the quietest voice, children or people who don't, pay attention. We'll just say that. I won't use my voice to personally attack or shout out opinions, and many times I don't like when people are getting emotionally triggered. I'm using it to remind you to hold integrity and the government's legislation, to use true justice in government bodies format, and need to stand up for what is with the people, to represent the voice, and to stand not in silence with people, but to protect their rights, to hold grounds in foundation, to hold differences in freedom, personal freedoms of opinions and such. Obligation to represent the people of this town and to hold firm to the freedom of this country it's built on. This isn't an ask, it's something that's already given. There isn't much of an opinion with what's going on, we'll say, in the other than I think it's choice. I think that a parent should be a parent. The religious views, what they're going through, we all have our individual experiences. Yet to make a choice, Darian, she's wearing a mask. I hold no begrudge. I am not. That is a personal decision, and I think as an education board to look into it and see what is true and what is fact, and base your opinion or your marks on that would be right. Facts are what's supposed to speak. I have worked for the FCC as military family child care. I also do child development. And to know what a child development, or what makes up child development, and seeing things or what they have to go through for progression in their life, stability, and what they need to be growing adults, and to have their self-worth, and to know, to figure out opinions and educate themselves. It's meaningful, it's needed. You guys all got there from personal experiences, fortitude, things to strengthen you, things you went through, and I'm not asking, but to remind you of the freedoms that these children need to be aware of. That's all.
Okay, public input is closed. Thank you for all of your input. We'll move on to committee reports. The first committee I have is finance and budget. That would be Kathy Willis.
Okay, we held a meeting on September 1st, and I just have some brief overviews of the meeting. Later in this meeting, we'll be asking for approval for synergistic training for our Director of Business Services, Angela Erdman, who will be traveling out of state to Texas to receive that training. It is not out of our pocket, it actually is out of the pocket of Synergistic, so I wanted to state that. Also, let's see here. I wanted to talk a little bit about the mill rate. We're really excited because it's an estimate right now. Granted, it's an estimate, but it could be as low as $7.06, where initially last winter and spring, we were talking about it possibly being $7.81. So we're pretty excited about the possibilities of it being that historically low. And we walked through the preliminary budget, which I will not bore you with the details, but you guys have that in your reports. And that will be finalized long after the third week of September count, and then into October, we'll start receiving final numbers. And we have another meeting next week on September 22nd, and that would be a wrap up. Thank you.
Any questions for Kathy? I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
Motion.
A second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Folks, okay, that is carried. Thank you, Kathy. Personnel Committee, Terry Trask, you're the chairperson.
We had a meeting on September 8th, and it turned into a longer meeting than we anticipated. But the fact is that we had some fairly straightforward business. We had an informational session about the healthcare system, the near site clinic, which the school board partners with the city to provide healthcare, direct and immediate healthcare to our staff and the people working in mental health public schools. So that was informational. Two action items came up. One was the need, because of the tremendously increase in enrollment at the McKinley Academy. We now have needs that we didn't anticipate. We do need. Joyce made the case for providing for another appointment of an English language. Used to call them English as a second language teacher to meet the needs of 25 to 35 students that need assistance if they're going to get educated in Manitowoc. The committee recommended that to go forward to the full board. The second request was to have a special education teacher, same situation. But in this case, to meet the needs of 29 students enrolled at McKinley. There was also a recommendation by the committee to submit that to the entire board for action. The last issue on the agenda was the superintendent evaluation, which I must say persists in being a very controversial piece of business. And I myself think it's controversial because there's a lot of opinions as to what should be done or what could be done, and all those opinions aren't in harmony with one another. And the fact is that we already have adopted policy, which is, I think, quite clear. I have copies of the policy. I could hand out the policy that was adopted by this board on March 23rd, 2021 is pretty straightforward. It doesn't allow for some things. It's very clear on what the process is. So even though we didn't come to any kind of consensus or agreement, it's an issue that still remains and will still have to be sorted out. So
yeah, questions for Gary, Colin?
Yeah, excuse me. As far as the evaluation process, what is the main holdup in? What is the issue that we're seeing in putting forward this evaluation process?
Well, tonight we'll initiate this evaluation process. It's on the agenda. I expect there'll be action, but there's various opinions about what the goal and the aim of the evaluation process ought to be. When the heavy duty evaluation of the superintendent ought to occur, I think it's real clear to me from the policy that That's not a debatable thing. But, you know, I mean, we talked about all of this. I think we have to come to an understanding if we're gonna do it. What we're doing it, how we're doing it and why we're doing it. And when we're doing it, which again is not unclear, but we haven't reached that understanding.
And it's on the agenda, I suppose. You want to keep going with that, or you want to wait till we have it? Yeah, I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't know why it took so long. Anything else? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion in a second to approve the minutes from that meeting.
I have a correction. You want to hear a correction now? or
You mean to the minutes?
Yeah.
We'll do that after we get a motion in a second, then we can make the correction. You have a motion?
Make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any additions or corrections? You can have.
It's something simple, but I was not there by 3:50. I was facilitating another meeting. So I didn't make that second, so Terry, you must have done that second and then.
I think I did, as a matter of fact.
So that correction.
Lori, you'll correct that then? Or
We had
makes up
another
the minutes,
problem.
we'll correct that and get that back. to the
There's
board.
nothing to do with the minutes.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, they're approved as corrected. Okay, we'll move on to the report of the superintendent. The first item is payment of vouchers. That would be Angela, our business director.
Are you guys gonna vote on the mask mandate tonight?
You have to have a board member that has enough guts to make a resolution.
Please,
have that?
this is a business meeting. We had public input. I appreciate that. Public input is done.
What about
Payment
answers?
of vouchers was included in board book. And for approval tonight, we have accounts payable expenditures for $3,294,543.03. And payroll in the amount of $561,107.08. Nothing too much of note in the payment of vouchers for this month. This is the August payroll, so teachers aren't included on this, so starting with next month, there will be more payroll. So happy to take any questions if there are some.
Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the payment of vouchers.
I'll make the motion.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you, Angela.
Are you guys gonna provide some answers?
Then we have as I said, we're keep moving. If you want to know the agenda, it's online. You can look it up.
So, I mean, it's a simple.
The personnel report, that would be Joyce.
Tonight. You doubt it, but he's saying yes.
Joyce, you're next.
All right, thank you. Let's see, there would have been again, is a personnel report, that was uploaded on Friday. And then an addendum, that was added today.
Any questions on those reports? Colin?
If they could be split, as I've stated
We
in
can
the
do that.
past, I
Sure, we can take
prefer
them
them.
separately.
Yep.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion and a second for the original report that we received.
I make the motion to accept.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And then the addendum that we received today. I would entertain a motion and a second on that.
I make a motion to accept that also.
And we have any discussion?
And for discussion, I am, as stated previously, I would prefer these be coming sooner rather than the day of, so I will be voting no.
Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, that is carried. Thank you. Then we have the superintendent and director's report. And I'll turn it over to Superintendent Holtzman.
Okay, so we'll start with the academic standards. I will lean on Stan Lensmeyer for that, but each year we have to approve our academic standards. Those are in board book, kind of an overview of what we use from the DPI for instruction. So any questions that you have? Yes.
Yeah, I see that this is kind of something that I would figure to be in a curriculum committee meeting. basically because it deals with the curriculum. I'm wondering why that was not brought into curriculum committee before being brought to the general.
I think this is the way we've done it for the last 10 years. So it's a, you know, again, if we don't adopt Wisconsin academic standards, we would then be void of academic standards, have to create our own, which is not anything that we'd be advising.
Right, I'm not saying that we don't adopt those academic standards. I'm saying that we would actually have gone through the process that we've been told that we have to follow in the first place.
I would make a motion that we refer this to the curriculum committee.
I will second that motion.
Okay, and Stacy, I'll let you speak if you have anything to say, because you made the motion.
Okay, thank you. I think this is an important topic and one that I believe should be explored at the committee level. Accepting academic standards is actually one of the most important aspects of our elected body. The information on this memo, it says it is for the 2020-21 school year. It also, when I looked it up on the webpage, when you click on the links that are there, there are standards that you can pick between like 2010 or 2020. And again, it's not specific enough of what standards we're actually accepting. And I think some of the standards also, this audience, if you look at the standards, some of them refer to equity and they also refer to privilege. And so I think that the standards should be looked at, and if they need to be written by us, then they should. And to the comment about whether or not we have to adopt standards, those should have been done prior to the school year starting, if that's something that needs to happen. So I believe that this should go to the curriculum committee for further discussion.
Okay, anybody else want to add anything? When is something like this due? When do we have to approve this study?
Annually, I believe is what it says on.
At the first board meeting of the term.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of asked Pam maybe to speak about this because, I mean, I see your name on it, so. And Jason, is there anything you wanted to add to this?
Just my apologies for the date of it's a form that we, a process that we've gone through annually. The standards that we've adopted are the state standards, so there's nothing that, you know, to your point, Stacy, it's the entire body of the state standards, and they go through a revision process on a regular basis. For example, the math standards were just updated by the state and revised by the state this year, and so then we update our instruction to align to that. The ELA standards were done last year, and then social studies the year before that. And so these align to the statewide assessments that are administered. So the forward assessment, the Aspire assessment, and the ACT assessment that our students are required to take. So the recommendation is that we adopt those along with the early literacy standards, which are standards that align to our early reading readiness assessment, which is PALS. And then also the other subject areas like our CTE, our art, our music, and our BIED standards. Again, just to align with the state standards so that our practices and our instruction really are aligned to what's going on in the recommendations of the state professionals at the DBI level. So our group, our teachers align their practice right now to that and their instruction to that. And we choose curriculum resources based on state standards.
Kathy, did you want to?
Yeah, I actually was gonna say, we are agreeing that was a typo.
Yes.
For this year. However, I do have something to add. I do think though, given circumstances about some of the controversies that we are in currently, that adopting the standards overall, I can see it as being necessary, that we need to get that rolling. However, sitting on the curriculum committee, I do understand accountability and transparency. And I do see some value in accountability with what we are specifically teaching our kids, that should go through the curriculum committee first. So if there are specific standards that are being taught, the curriculum committee should be aware of what that is That way too, if it's something that does not align with how people feel in general in our district, that can be addressed. So I think at this point, that's what I would like to see.
So Kathy.
Hang on, let's Kathy finish.
Yeah, no, I do feel as though I'm done. I just feel like we need to be accountable and it should be, we should have those specific standards that we're trying to teach within different subject matters brought before the curriculum committee. So that there's transparency, everyone will know. Sorry.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Meredith.
No, we haven't veered from these standards in years, since they were written in this manner. If we were to veer, that's when we would go through committee and have those discussions. If we choose to say we don't want to follow these standards tomorrow when my child goes to school, there's no curriculum to be taught. I'm not okay with that. And these people all want their kids to be in school. That's a problem. So that's where I'm coming from. Maybe those talks are for 22, 23.
I don't think so because, okay.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
But I just, no, and I'm concerned if we say, these aren't our curriculum standards, what is my child learning tomorrow?
My point is, these are the Wisconsin standards. So these are all standards that you're putting before us. Correct? So out of all of those standards, teachers don't teach necessarily every single one of them. There are certain ones that are made priority every year. And so those could be brought forward in curriculum. What are the priorities in our schools? I'm not saying let's not approve this. I do think that needs to go forward, but I want to get more specific with what is being taught. And I think partially because that is a question that a lot of people have. And I think that if it's brought forward in committee, that would be another transparent way of us knowing and the general public that what is being taught in school without questioning it. So,
and these have been on our website for several years, just,
but they're
if we're talking transparency, they have been there.
Yes.
We have talked about power standards very publicly. So
I think in order to relay the fears of a lot of people, that we could narrow it down to what we're actually.
Alan, go ahead.
Thank you. My point is that, we've been told that we have a process in how things are put forward in the school board. I've requested things to be put forward to here, and I was told specifically that those things need to go to committee first. Fine. If that is the way that this is the process, then that's the way that it happens. So therefore, that should be treated with other things too, not just my things. There are things that should be brought forth in committee, and they should be put into those committees first. This isn't saying we don't adopt those standards. It's saying we follow the processes that we've set forth for ourselves. This is not a yes, no type situation. It's just simply going about the same process for all the things and having consistency in how we approach things. That's all that we're saying.
Yeah, and I'll just respond to that, Colin, because I know I responded to you regarding some things that you wanted to request.
Right.
It depends on the item. Not all items need to go to committee. Some can go directly to the board. I agree with Stacy's motion. I don't recall that we sent this through curriculum in the past. There have been questions at the board level, but it does seem to me to be something that should be disseminated at a committee level and then brought forward to the board. It doesn't mean there's going to be any changes. Doesn't mean there's going to be objections to it, but I agree, that it's probably best, especially with the questions we're getting, is bring it to the committee level and then to the full board. But just so you know, I don't just say to you, take it to a committee because I don't want to deal with it. It's just some things are appropriate just to take to the full board. Most things probably should go through committee first, and this is probably one. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I'm not ready to vote on standards at all, but I would appreciate some explanation of them, some discussion of them. Some, I honestly, I have to confess that this part of our business is pretty confusing to me, since it's filled with acronyms and terminology that I'm not particularly familiar with. And that might be, shame on me, but I'd like to have better explanation.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything? Meredith?
I would have a concern that oftentimes we go to committee and it's not solved in that solitary committee meeting because additional information is asked. I'm concerned that we would be putting this off for potentially a month or maybe even 2 as a result of that. So I don't expect a response, but I think that's our current reality.
Put a time limit on it.
Go ahead. What do you want?
Put a time limit. If we're gonna review if the committee's gonna review it, then let's put a time limit on it. And let's not let it get bogged down there without moving it forward.
Well, if it's approved to go to committee, then the committee can make that decision. Any further discussion?
So can you repeat the motion?
Yeah.
The motion is, Lori, you want to repeat it? It's to move this item to the curriculum committee. Is that correct? Did that
Yep.
summarize it?
Yes.
That is correct.
To move this item to the curriculum committee rather than having us vote on it tonight. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion is carried. So then the curriculum committee, are you the chair?
Yep, we
You
did on
can
Thursday.
put this on your agenda. Okay.
I believe the agenda's already posted, so is that a violation of?
When is your meeting?
transparency?
When's your meeting?
Thursday.
You could add this item. You have time to add the item.
Okay.
It can be added. Yeah, you
Are
can do
you
that
all
within
able to
24 hours
see
of the
this
meeting.
on Thursday?
So,
Can anybody who will be attending, please get their questions of data and things like that in so we can actually have a good, solid conversation. That would be my request, so that it's not put off for another month.
okay, anything else that you'd like on the director's report? Any questions for the superintendent? Hearing none, we'll move on to district activity update.
Just a couple of reminders. I think we have one at the end about if you want to go to the WASB event that is October 5th. We've got to get that information to us. That homecoming is the week of October 4th. I put in just some information. Obviously, we invite all of you to any of our school activities, but if you're interested in something and you don't have a pass, let us know. We'll make sure you get there. Lots of activities that week, including the parade that will go beginning 6 o'clock on Friday night down Grand Avenue. So those are always fun times. We'll get down the Ruick Field. Again, I would tell you that we're off to a great start. We're going to be giving you some preliminary enrollment numbers, probably the next board meeting, but we're looking at an increased number of students in our district, and that's always a positive for us. And continue to provide opportunities for those students to be welcomed into our district. Probably over 100 new students, and probably triple that in people who are new to Manitowoc for this school year. So lots of new families. I think I'll pause there and see if there's any comments, questions.
Is this still okay? So the report, or is it just?
Yeah, just activity report.
I have something about
Go ahead,
the,
Tom.
disproportionality, or a question about that, so that's not, you're asking a question.
Yeah, that's not, okay. The next item is conversation about COVID-19 protocols. Obviously, we've heard some feedback about that tonight, and just would open that up for any questions or comments that the board wants to make in regards to our protocols.
Stacy?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to have the COVID-19 protocol policies and procedures be placed in the hands of the Board of Education effective immediately.
I will second that motion.
Did you want to speak to it, Stacy?
I do, thank
Yeah.
you. I've made this motion because I don't think that the power to make COVID policy should have ever been passed out to the hands of, out of the hands of the school board in the first place. So I know a lot of people will feel as if this is something we're taking away from the superintendent. That is not my position here. I actually think that over time, and just listening to everybody, that there's been a lot of anger directed at our superintendent, which is unfair. And the Board of Education has allowed it to happen by almost scapegoating our superintendent by not taking the position of taking the responsibility of this decision, which is in our purview is policies. So I do think it should be, policy decisions absolutely must be made with elected officials. And that's because we answer directly to the voters. Mark does not answer directly to the voters, we do. Passing policy decisions to staff is not what we were elected to do. And in fact, and I know some board members have argued that the policy wouldn't change. So last time we saw that the 5 board members agreed with how the superintendent was rolling out those policies. But that's not the point. The point is that it's the school board decision. We were elected by the people. We are to make policy, and I believe that it should go back into the hands of the school board officials.
Anyone else? Carrie?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I don't think anybody should be beating up on Mark on this. It's a tough position, and it's a very difficult decision. However, I don't know what the technicalities are here, but I don't think the authority ever left the board. I think that what we had in the last meeting is we had a recommendation by the superintendent, who had gathered all the material together, presented a recommendation to the board, and we had the opportunity at that meeting to say, hey, no way, Jose, or as we did, a 5-2 vote in favor of that recommendation. So I'm not trying to skip out on taking responsibility for that. And I don't think that we have either abdicated the responsibility as a board or alienated the authority that we have.
I agree,
Colin?
I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember us having or casting a vote as far as the mandate goes.
We did not. There was
So
no
I
vote.
would then go with the notion that, you know, this was never presented to the board. Yeah, maybe in the sideline conversations that the 5-2 would have gone a different way. Maybe it wouldn't have. But you know, on another note, you know, we didn't even get to have much in the way of discussion. I was very disappointed in the amount of discussion that we were able to have. Much to the point of, you know, we didn't get to discuss how this would roll out. We didn't get to discuss the ramifications. We just basically went around the table, discussed our opinions on the matter of mask and non-mask, and that was the end of it. The amounts of feedback that I've received from parents overwhelmingly has been against the mask mandate. That being said, I base my decisions on what the people that I'm elected to decide for. This is a representative government. I'm a representative of those parents. I'm elected to make a decision and a choice. I'm held accountable for that decision. And that accountability is through, you know, recalls. I'm held accountable for my being voted into this position. Mark was not. This choice should not be with him at all. The parents are upset, and we are the ones that are answering for something we didn't get to choose.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Kathy?
I like to comment. I guess part of it is the reason, I think part of the reason that we had Mark make those decisions was historical. So being on the board for an additional year, we dealt with COVID that entire year. And it was seen that things were changing all the time. It was very fluid, you know, the information coming in, we didn't know what COVID was about. Numbers were different from one week to the next. And in order to respond quickly, we elected to have, and I say elected, I'm just saying we chose to have Mark make those decisions, because otherwise he would have to keep coming back to the board over and over and over again, and we couldn't react to what was happening within our district and our area. So that's how it happened. To actually name it scapegoating, that's pretty harsh, Stacy, and I really take offense to that. I think that's not actually the intention at all. Does it fall on Mark and does it look like it? Possibly, but that was not the intention. And for you to imply that, I think is, it's just really wrong. So
His name was in
that
the
was
paper.
not the intention whatsoever.
His name was in the
Uh,
paper.
Please.
You guys gave him the damn
Please.
power, just admit it.
Sit down, please.
All you had to do is admit it. You got elected, do your job. You have the power to do what you think you got.
No, we did do our job and we were trying to be reactive with that so that it allowed our school system to have a better reaction time with what was happening within COVID. And unknown for everyone, it's easy to lay blame and in hindsight have see things that are decisions that should maybe have been made differently. But that's what we chose at the time. And that has not been rescinded.
Decision.
Are we all willing on the board, are we all willing on the board to go through the motions of meeting with the county health nurse? I don't know how many times Mark meets with her, to gather all of this data. I just think it needs to be in a central location with Mark. Because I'm not a healthcare professional. So he is able to meet with the county health nurse. He's our go-to person. Would you please
I'm going to ask for a
stop?
motion to
Parents,
recess.
I would like to make a
Hang
motion.
on. We're going to adjourn until we can clear out the room and. Have a second to that?
When you coming back then?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Hey, when you
No.
coming back?
Okay, you're on a recess.
You have two opposition to it.
You're out of control, people. Really bad.
Personal accountability. That's what we want. Where does your kid go to school? Your kid goes to Baskin school?
My kids are adults. What time are you guys coming back here? Listen, remember, it's public record. All their emails, all their.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not your subjects. We put who's in office.
You're not all.
Go.
Any person is mad to walk.
You're a small man, dude. We want our answer tonight. You owed us an answer. Give us our damn answer tonight. You are. Right? Everyone up here will take ownership. It's a small house. We got here from the county sheriff tomorrow.
Since he's going to owe us an answer after their session tonight, or it's online, you're going to owe us every single one of their emails from every device. Coming up pretty soon.
What? I didn't hear
We're
it.
public record. Every
Our kids cannot get this time back.
You guys are on a-
Ridiculous.
They're not only on
Consider your last.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Colin.
Thursday.
Yes,
Thursday.
that's good, Thursday. That is not my device. It's the district's, I never use it. So I just say here.
You know, where are we going? Yeah, maybe Pam or Jason can show you. It's in room one.
This is a closed session meeting to work.
It'll continue to be live streamed, so you'll be able to catch it.
I'm outside. Did you help me, Lord?
Got it right.
Oh, yeah.
I have to drive. I can't do it.
Anybody need to plug in? You good?
You're like gone into the tornado shelter. Oh my goodness. I think we're used to it at school.
I'll head between the days.
There, I'm here, there. No, I'm here.
No, I know that's funny.
Okay, it is 8:30 PM and I'm calling the meeting back to order. We were in recess. We have a motion on the floor and a second, and the motion is to remove any COVID-19 protocols from the responsibility of the superintendent. Would that summarize it, Stacy?
Yes.
And we're in the discussion stage, so anybody like to offer discussion?
Yes.
Kathy?
I guess I kind of want to question you, Stacy, with why you want to do that and to point out that there's a difference between creating policy and protocol. And I believe, and I correct me if I'm wrong from anyone here, but that when we're talking about COVID and what we're doing in the schools, it's not actually policy, it's protocol. Am I correct in saying that, or am I not correct?
You're correct. There's no policy. We don't have anything in our bylaws directly related to COVID-19.
So
We
it's
did not develop a new policy.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to fall on the shoulders of the board. I mean, it does ultimately, now I'm not making any sense, but never mind.
No, those are good policies.
Colin.
So I guess if we were going off of protocol and not policy in the implementation of the previous mandate or of the mandate put into play, the reason that it was not put forth as a vote, my understanding is there was a relinquishment of those duties to Superintendent Holtzman. So that was simply a protocol that was put forward to relinquish those duties and not a policy?
No, that's not really true.
Okay.
We allowed the superintendent to make the decision at the time because we had frequent meetings, and it just didn't seem workable for the board to have, because we have to meet in public session, and we can't meet instantly. But the superintendent does make day-to-day decisions that we don't become involved in, right? And that's really what it was. We just felt that it was best for him because he could make a decision on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
To either add or remove protocols as he felt necessary. But the board has never relinquished their power to overrule any decision that the superintendent makes. I mean, I thought I made that clear at the last meeting.
I guess I was because I mean, I would have probably called to called for a vote then, you know, if it would have been, and that way then we maybe could have even had some of the discussion on the matter. But
But I mean, we can do that we can do that with any issue that we choose. The superintendent makes recommendations effectively to the board, or makes day-to-day decisions that we're not privy to because we're not there.
Right.
He's got that authority. I don't care what anybody says in the public, you know, that's just not the way it is.
We're here now.
But, we do have the right to overrule any decision he makes. Whether we want to or not, that's another question, whether we should, but we can. And this is an example of it. I think maybe that's part of the intent of the motion. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not speaking for you, Stacy, but it's just to say that when it comes to COVID-19 protocols, we're not talking about anything else. That let's just let the board decide instead of having the superintendent decide.
Right.
Which is what occurred, which is what has occurred at various times through the last 18 months.
And I'll recognize the task at hand. You know, when COVID-19 was first rolling out, it was a very dynamic situation, and the situation was, how do we figure it out? It's changing day to day. I get it. It was dynamic. However, moving forward, where we're at right now is the knowledge of what it is. It's a little less dynamic in my opinion. And I do think that this is a task that we can and should take on because of the obvious, you know, we just saw what, you know, there's a lot of people that are very upset. We need to be held accountable to those people for any of the decisions, and it isn't fair to him. He should not be having to answer for that, because along with that goes correspondence back with those parents. You know, they should be given a response back. They should be, you know, if there's an issue with it, we should be right away responding back that this is why I feel the way I do. And if all those parents were to just be right towards him, it does, it increases his workload significantly, and that he has other things to do as well.
But when we respond, we are one person, we are not the entire board.
Yeah, that's very clear.
So
No, it's not.
That's a line.
But just wait.
No, it's not.
That is a line. My concern with shifting that from Mark to the board is the time frame that we have to post a meeting and make things public. It's very clear that others have had a problem with transparency and posting things. And my concern is if we need to move on a dime, we are prohibited from doing that and having people attend the meeting.
Lisa, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, the problem that we have right now with this board is that we're not acting like a board. And it looks bad to the public that, you know, you seem to be having organized all of this tonight. So
Wait a minute.
Wow.
Wait a minute. Hang on. Let's keep the discussion to the motion. I mean, that's a separate, you know, you have your opinion, that's fine.
So based
But
on
wait,
what I'm seeing.
Wait, let's keep the discussion to the motion, because that's what we have. We have to discuss what the motion is, not other stuff. Yeah.
Based on what I'm seeing, we can't act like a board because we're not acting like a board. And I have problems with that.
Any more discussion on the motion, which is to give the authority to make decisions regarding COVID-19, COVID-19 protocols, and that would be all the protocols.
Correct.
Yeah.
I
To the
still
board
wanna hear
rather
from
than to
Stacey.
the
Sorry, I still want to hear
superintendent.
from Stacy's viewpoint about why we should do that.
Well, it's up to her. She wants to say anything.
Well,
She wants to add anything. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of reiterate what I said. It's a decision for the elected people to make. The Mark is not accountable to the public. We are. And therefore, we should be the ones that are making decisions. If we're going to make decisions about other people's children, we should make that decision and not Mark.
But he makes those decisions every day on a day-to-day basis.
And you guys did it for months. You made the decision. And that was the first board meeting I watched when you gave him the power to do that. And Meredith didn't want to do it.
She said, I don't think we should do this. We should keep control of it. She didn't want to do it. And you all agreed to let him handle it. And I understand that, Colin talks about the fluidity of it. But right now, every area school, 75% of the schools are not doing this. And I believe that we need to stop hiding behind Mark and make the decision that we were elected to do. So you can call it a policy, you can call it protocol, whatever you want. I don't know what else to say. I think it is a board decision and should not be left for the superintendent. And it has nothing to do with Mark doing it wrong, doing it right. It is an elected position decision.
Okay, but then you're still making comments like hiding behind, and those are the things that I take issue with, because no one's hiding.
I don't think it's.
Wait, let's not have a debate here, one at a time. Go ahead, Kathy.
Again, I'm gonna go back to the history of this was not Colin talking about fluidity. It was me who mentioned it there. That was the history behind this, was so that as a district, we could react to what was going on around us in the best interest of our kids going to school here as soon as possible. So no one was hiding, no one was trying not to make a decision. We were trying to make the best decision for the kids. And that is what I think we're all trying to do here on the board right now. So it's just a debate, because none of us really, not a single person here really knows the real answer about what is the right thing to do. And the 60, 70 people who are out there, the majority of them are voicing their concerns, but that doesn't mean that they're 60 or 70% of the district either. There's a lot of quiet people who don't come forward. So it's really about like, what do we do? I don't know. I still don't know. I don't know what the real answer is.
Carrie, go ahead.
I'm in favor of the spirit of the motion. I do think that the buck should stop with us, and I do object to Colin's characterization of selective democracy too. I mean, that group out there tonight was not the people that we are accountable to. They are a part of the people that we're accountable to. And because you get a few phone calls or you get a few emails, I think we have to be better at making policies than that. I mean, but I agree with the spirit. I would like a process to take place here where the person who's on duty all the time, who's in contact with the Manitowoc County Health Department on a frequent basis, et cetera, I think is probably the best person to make a recommendation to this board. I think that maybe we would have been better off if we'd taken a vote in the meeting that Mark presented that information and recommendation to. But it was apparent, it seemed to me, that there was an agreement with what he was saying by consensus. But I'd be in favor of, yes, absolutely. That it's not really a policy until it's voted on by the board.
Dave, can I speak to
You go ahead, Colin. Yeah, I just didn't look over at you. Sorry.
sorry. As far as the group that was here tonight, that's completely grassroots, first off. Those are, nothing was
I thought you
organized.
were speaking to the motion.
Hang on.
I am speaking to the emotion. Nothing was organized. Those are the people that were there because they're upset with their children, with what was presented for their children. All right. I didn't call them all up and say, hey, come on down. And in speaking to the representation aspect that we have as a duty, I had requested initially that we have a survey. We have a survey from the board, from the parents, that we would find out where they sit on this. It didn't say one way or the other of this is the way we're going. It was to find out what they sit, where they sit. I had also requested it numerous times, and I did get it presented to me, the prior COVID response from the parents. My interest is in representing the parents because those are their children. So that is why I want us to be, as a board, representing those parents. I don't think he is tasked with that, and he should not be.
Well,
Dave Meredith.
Okay, Meredith.
I
I'll
just
wait till
want to
everybody's
say,
done.
yes, I initially did vote against that because I thought it was the right thing to do. And luckily in education, we allow people to grow and change. But I guess, Mark, I'd like to hear from you what your recommendation would be. And maybe you're not comfortable with that, but you know all that is going into this behind the scenes. I'm just curious, your thoughts, if that would impede what needs to be done if we shifted that.
Yeah, I guess I would say that my concern would be that we have a health protocols team that has spent significant hours and probably met for 2 hours every Wednesday for the last year and a half, putting together very detailed protocols, which have way more to do with health and safety than just the mask. And so there's more to what we're talking about here than are we universally masking or not. And so I appreciate the conversation. I understand the sides of the story, but again, there are many, many, many protocols. And if you look on our website and you look at the documents, there are many, many, many documents that talk about our staff, our students, our visitors, that I don't think the board wants to get involved with, or in my opinion, should be involved with creating. And I go back to the WASB talking about the board deciding what to do and the administration deciding how to do it. So I can appreciate if you feel like you want to vote on the topic, but I just want you to understand the topic is way more than just universal masking when we talk about health protocols, right? It's about our quarantine process, it's about our vaccination process, it's about how long you stay out if you're, I mean, it's about, do you stay overnight? Do you not stay overnight? What does co-curriculums look like? There are numerous documents that I would be concerned, I guess, that would cause some pauses in how we go about things. The mask is one thing, and I'd take a recommendation to do one protocol differently. And obviously I will, whatever the board decides, but there are many, many more than just universal masking.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So what I'll ask, because Stacy, you made the motion.
Yes.
Is if the board is going to take over all of the COVID-19 protocols, how are we going to make that decision based on all of the protocols that are, well, I mean, I'm not saying we'd have multiple protocols,
Sure.
what would we use as a basis for making that decision?
Yeah. Well, my suggestion would be is that we would have an ad hoc committee of board members that would get together and look at those protocols. And because the other thing that's happening is that, Mark says he's spending 2 hours a week with people, but the rollout of this has not been prepared. Students being notified, I don't want to go into every single detail that hasn't been rolled out, but those are the things that should have been. I mean, we've been at this for over 18 months, and it should be pretty easy to roll out because not much has changed. And so, again, I would say that an ad hoc committee of a couple board members get together and monitor the protocol.
As parents, we were notified of all.
And I'm still, Stacy, so I just want to keep going here.
I guess, Meredith, I'll just say to the specific one is what happened at Lincoln High School.
It's all in our protocol.
But it wasn't given to the parents prior to that.
That's not true. We were sent by text, we were sent by email, we were sent in our welcome back letter.
Does it say in there what they should do for education?
Let's see. I can sit here and scan the documents if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
I'll just add, okay, so I'm with you here for a while. I just want to make sure I got it down.
Right. So
so we have an ad hoc committee, and it can be at whatever 3, I guess, but now you got to have a public meeting again, and then you got to come back to the board. So there's just that, see, one of the things is, and I mean, I do take issue with the fact that we said we dumped it on Mark. I mean, I had discussions with Mark. We didn't dump anything on Mark. He
Yeah,
willingly accepted the
In
responsibility
my,
and
can I
he
just
has
say
it,
one
yeah.
thing? In my write-up, which I didn't say, and I can show it to you, it says unintentionally.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So I don't think
I know we didn't get a
intention-
chance to say everything out there.
So it wasn't, I don't
Yeah.
think we intentionally did it, but that's what the perception is.
Well, it is, but you know, if we take over the COVID-19 protocols, all those emails he's getting are going to us. And we're not getting paid. I'm not getting paid anything for this.
No.
You know,
I'll jump on that committee.
and well, you can be on the committee, but I'm still the board president.
Sure.
I get a lot of stuff. I get a lot of copy and paste stuff that people send me.
Sure.
You know, I've had my children and my grandchildren included in this stuff. That gets a little scary. I don't want to get more of that, but I mean, I know where you're going with it, but now it's coming back to us. And when it comes to COVID-19 stuff, this is getting ugly.
Yeah.
You know, you guys probably aren't old enough, but I remember the seatbelt issue back in the 1980s. It got ugly. There were a lot of death threats sent out to legislators because people didn't want to wear seatbelts. They completely ignored the safety stuff from the National Transportation Board. Okay, they didn't care. I'm just not going to wear it. It's personal freedom. It's abridging my constitutional rights. The same stuff these people are saying happened with the seatbelt issue. Identical. I mean, fortunately, I haven't gotten any death threats yet, but popular opinion was strongly against the seatbelts, and yet every state except one passed seatbelt laws. Why? Because the statistics showed that it saved lives. And even today, I'm on the Traffic and Safety Commission. I can't tell you how many of those fatal traffic accidents are people not wearing a seatbelt. I mean, it's a fact. Those are facts. People still don't wear them. They're not going to wear masks. I get that. I'm not liking wearing this thing. I don't like wearing it anywhere. I've had to wear it. I've had to be tested multiple times. But this really is more about, as an elected official, we always have to do our best to do what's right. It isn't always popular. And I hear what it's caused, but just because people are threatening me doesn't mean I should do whatever they tell me. Because what's next? And that's just the way I look at it. I'm not against this proposal here, but I really want to make sure this is going to work for us and that this is the best decision right now. I know it takes the responsibility away from Mark, and then it puts it on us as elected officials. But we still have to do what's right. Just because we have a room full of people yelling and screaming at us, and that's what was happening. There's no doubt that's what happened. Doesn't mean we have to give in and say, well, just because you don't like wearing a mask or you don't like wearing a seatbelt, we're not going to make a law.
Okay.
That's where it is.
Sure.
So and that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, and all I can
That's my
say
soapbox.
is, you know, who determines what's right? I mean, all of us can sit here and I can bring you tons of data that is peer reviewed that shows you the opposite of what you're doing, and you can do the same and give that to me.
Right.
So we're going to go round and round and round, and I would just ask each one of you: Are you telling me that you believe that Roncalli and Lutheran and Mishicot and Valders and all these other places want the detriment of the students, and that's why they're doing it, or they feel bullied? I don't feel bullied into making this decision.
I believe they have room to space where we do not. So they have additional mitigation that is available to them.
Well, I guess those are the kinds of things we can talk about if
After
we.
the motion, I called
Yeah,
the question,
yeah.
Dave.
Well, if you call the question, then I need a second. I need a second to that. That's a motion.
I know.
Will anybody second it? Just so you know, there's no discussion. 2/3 of the assembly has to approve it, and then we just go to a vote.
And this is to move.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
This is for the
Hold on.
What was the motion? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
what is it, Dave?
Call the
We're
question.
confused.
The question, the motion is to call the question. You need a second. There's no discussion. You go right to a vote. You need a 2/3 vote because it ends discussion and goes right to the
What
vote.
are we voting?
We're voting on the
Then you'll vote
motion to
after
call
you
the
vote
question,
question.
not the
Voting on
motion, not the
not
original
the
motion.
question.
The
Okay.
main motion will be voted on if 2/3 of us approve it, which would take 5 out of 7 have to approve it. There's a lot that motion gets misused constantly. So it's not just here. All in favor of the motion to end discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, now we vote on the main motion. All in favor, say aye.
Hold up,
There's,
repeat the main motion.
the main motion,
I'll say.
go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, sure. That the COVID-19 protocol, policies, and procedures be placed in the hands of the Board of Education effective immediately.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails 3-4. Okay. Then, where are we at now?
Can I make an amendment to that?
Not on a motion.
On the motion?
You can make another motion as long as it's dealing with COVID-19 protocols.
Okay, I'm not sure how to make the motion, but I'm wondering if this could be reevaluate, like, right now you have effective immediately. Can we look at it as a board to come back to another vote? Like, in a matter of a couple of weeks?
Well, at our next
Or
meeting.
meeting?
At our next meeting. I am going to take up Stacy's idea, though, regardless of the decision to have an ad hoc committee to discuss it. So I will do that. Because I can do that, without board approval.
You can
So,
do
you know.
that, Dave. I didn't quite get it.
I'm going to agree with Stacy's recommendation to have an ad hoc committee, which I would have done anyways, whether the vote was for or against, to discuss COVID-19 protocols. I think that's a good idea. That's a way to temper some of the decision-making process before a recommendation is made. And the superintendent's going to know what we're talking about, okay? This isn't going to be a secret. It's got to be an open meeting. So that I'll go along with. Calvin, did you want to say
Yeah, I
something
did.
about
I wanted to, I know, speaking or in what Mark had alluded to, that this is a very, it's not just masks, it's not just, there's a lot of different things that are into this. So I guess I would maybe I would like to make a motion that the school board has the ability to weigh in on and is the ones that decide whether there be school closures and masks. The two biggest contentious things and the things you hear the most of. So I guess the motion would be that the school board decides masks and school closure, and the rest of the protocols would be in Hillsborough.
Do we have a second to that?
Don't you think we,
Wait, we need a second.
we need a second.
I'll second that
Okay,
discussion.
now we can have discussion. Carrie?
Don't you think we already have that? Don't you think that already exists? I mean, it seems to me it's a duplication of what really is the authority.
Well, I didn't.
Or
I don't remember.
maybe it's just a reaffirmation.
Well,
But-
I just remember I clarified at our last meeting, I asked specifically at the beginning of the COVID-19 discussion was this an actionable item? The answer was no, it was not an actionable item to be voted on by the board. So, and that I remember Dave saying, yes, but it would be, I don't know if these are the right words, but silly that the superintendent would not take our recommendation. Okay, but the fact is he doesn't have to. And so what Colin
I never understood that.
So
but
what
maybe-
Colin is saying is that these two things, the mask and closing of the school, would be something that would have to be voted on rather than Mark getting to make the decision.
And we always have that authority, but I mean, when that came up, the consensus was clear that a majority agreed with the recommendation at that time. That was pretty clear.
And that's fine. I would just.
Colin, you made the motion, so I'll go to you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. you.
That's all right. No.
I understand that, yes, 5-2 was the spirit of discussion at the time. I just think that, we are accountable. So let's put those things to a vote then. These are things that do not require a mask policy being implemented, and the closure of a school does not require drop of the hat, let's go. These are things that the public are very upset with. We should be answering to the public on the way we decide.
Some of the public, yeah.
It doesn't matter who. They elected us. If it's, there's people that disagree with me a lot, and that happens. That's part of the role we play. And the same with other people. But that is what is decided upon when it comes election time.
I kind of have a different take on that. And I guess when I think of it as I was elected in here, it was because people trusted the way that I think and trusted who I am to make those decisions on behalf of our kids. And right now, I don't really think of it as like, because people are yelling and screaming over masks. I'm trying to sort out what I think is best for the kids in our district. And I don't, to say I don't care about parents would be totally wrong, because that's not what I'm trying to say. The kids are the priority. So there's part of me that says, do we really have to wear masks? Is it really necessary? I mean, I vacillate with this kind of stuff all the time, right? But it shouldn't be boiled down to because we were voted in, we're answering to certain individuals or certain groups of people. This is about educating our kids. You know what I mean? So like, I know you ran for certain things and you had agendas, so did I. The sad thing is 18 months later, I haven't been able to deal with any of this because we've been dealing with COVID and masks and CRT. So like nothing else has been dealt with in the last 18 months because this keeps being the majority of our conversation, which honestly, I find extremely frustrating, having been a teacher in this school district or sub for 14 years and seeing some of the issues that I saw. And then because of COVID, we haven't been able to deal with any of it. And here we are, even at this meeting, just talking over and over and over about COVID. There's so many other things that we need to be doing for our kids. So I don't know what the answer is. I still don't have the answer. I have mixed feelings about it all, but I just want to think about the kids. And I don't want to be peer pressured by what's happening out in our boardrooms to make decisions.
I guess.
Anybody else want to talk to the motion?
I
Carrie?
mean, I'm not being
Colin.
Sorry. I mean, I keep saying, but I mean, I'm not being peer pressured. Everybody knows how I stand on things. It's very clear. And the position that I have is that I don't want to decide for somebody else's children. These aren't my children. So I would prefer, I mean, that's my view. I would prefer that the parent makes the choice for their child because these are their children. Now, that's where I'm at. I mean, I'm advocating simply to just vote in that realm. If you want to vote for masks, it's your prerogative and it's your vote. I'm simply saying, let's have a vote.
Yeah, and my take on some of that though is that masks are not about trying to take away any health decisions from parents. Because I wouldn't have wanted that either when my kids were growing up. I still don't want that, right? But
Well, wait, the motion here is about who makes the decision, not
Okay.
about whether you agree with masks or not. Go ahead, but if you want to go on, Kathy, you can go on.
Oh, I was just saying, we require kids to wear shirts to school, and that's a health reason, right? So right now, it's,
Yeah,
I
right.
know, but
Meredith, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Again, I would reiterate that if we secure power about closing schools, that we require a, whatever it is, 48-hour notice to be able to meet, to do that in a public venue, to clear our schedules, to make that happen. And if we need to close it because we don't have enough teachers, I have a grave concern about my child showing up and no teacher being present because the board has to wait for 2 days to make that decision.
Carrie, did you?
No, I mean, it's, really, it's like, it'd take more than Solomon to do this one. I mean, I agree that honestly, we should weigh in on issues like this. I actually thought we had, but you want more clarity to it and more just sort of, a mechanical sort of process. But I see I see the issue in this situation. It's so goddamn complex and so like wow, beyond my pay grade. I mean, if the superintendent comes and says, look, here's what the deal is, and I'll give you the information that I have in my analysis of it, et cetera, et cetera. God, I would trust him on that. I would trust him on that. And I would say, okay, you can't make a motion, but somebody make a motion now in response to what the superintendent has said. And then we could vote on it. And I mean, delusional as I am, I guess, thought we'd kind of done that, even though we didn't take a formal vote.
Colin, you want to repeat your motion, if you remember?
So my motion is to, that the board would decide on school closure and masks. and that the board would decide and that the superintendent would handle the other protocols.
You better.
I'll just define it as, we decide masks and
Yeah.
closing.
Can we do that?
Wait a minute.
in
The
retro?
school closure might be a different issue because that might happen on a snow day, so let's define the school closure a little better.
School closures in response to COVID.
Okay, that's probably better, because if you just say school closure now, someone that's no longer here will take that and run with it, right? Yeah, I don't want to do that. But I mean, I'll accept that. I'll accept that.
I don't know, I thought what Dave said about, well, maybe we need a subcommittee.
Well,
You know?
I'm gonna set that up
And
anyway.
maybe we should,
Irrelevant.
we need to be involved, of course, in the decision.
Can we have that said succinctly before we vote so that we know what we're voting for?
The motion is to place the COVID-19 school closure and masking decisions with the board. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Stacy seconded it. Any further discussion?
I just make it.
Go ahead.
We have had situations where the state superseded the board. Would we, I don't know, I just want to make sure we don't create something that, like, because of course, when we left in 2020, the state said you're closing and we didn't have any choice.
Well, that's the way it is with all laws though, right?
But we didn't have I'm just saying, it's okay. And maybe.
Well, we can't override state
can't override
statute or
state.
federal regulations.
Right.
We can't do that. Right now, the policy not policy, but this motion, if we accepted it, would not override any current federal mandate or state mandates. If they made one, it would simply override what we had. And we couldn't come back and then meet and vote to override a state or federal mandate. We know that, but we're not doing that here. Okay?
I just want to ask Colin, if I voted against this and the motion failed, what would be perilous about the situation that left us in? Why would that be a bad situation? I mean, I just want to be an informed voter on this.
What would be I guess, can you repeat your question? I'm just for clarity to answer.
Well, I'm saying if we vote this motion down, what would be so negative, so perilous, so, inappropriate with the situation as it continues to stand now?
Well, I guess currently we, in my feelings on this, is the superintendent is the sole decider. Parents have said numerous times they want to be in the decision process. And they
Some
are.
parents.
You can throw it up either way. In fact, it'd be great if a survey would be put out there so we could actually get the data on this. But that being said, they want to hold people accountable to whatever they're deciding, and I think that we should be held accountable to whatever we decide, self-included.
Okay.
So, I mean, it goes both ways where I'm just held just as accountable as the rest of everybody on what we decide here.
Sure.
And I think that rather than Mark take the heat on it, I think we should take the heat on whatever it is that we decide.
Oh, we'll do that for sure. But I disagree with your assertion that Mark's the only guy that does this. I mean, I do think the board.
I didn't get a vote on it.
I know you didn't get a vote.
And I don't like that. I really wanted
Well, I
to.
think we'll probably get votes on it from now.
All these motions and votes and all this stuff is creating chaos, division, and just a lot of bad feelings here. So that's my feeling on this.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second.
I would need a clarification on the motion, because I'm wondering if you mean the school district shutting down. And the reason I'm asking that is because we could have circumstances where there would be an outbreak in a classroom or in a school building, a single school building versus in the past, the district closing, and I wouldn't wanna have us miss that part of the conversation. And so, I would love a clarification if we mean the school district.
I'll go district.
Do you wanna,
Yeah, district.
why don't you amend, well,
I'm friendly to the amendment
Is
of stating specifically the district versus specific school.
the district, and then you seconded it,
Yes, I
Stacy.
second the funding.
Well, you just say it's okay, that's
It's
good
okay.
enough, okay. Okay, state the motion.
For the record, the motion is that the school board would be the body that votes on school district closure and the body that decides mask mandates.
Okay. How do we do that if there was a breakout tomorrow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there's a
my
You don't break
opinion-
out at a school, let's say. How do we do it?
That's.
I mean, because the
school-
board couldn't get together to do it. The
That
school
is-
would have to stay open.
That is the school though, not the district. So when we moved from the district closing, it's all of its schools to virtual.
So the superintendent still would have control over individual schools. We would just, it would be as a whole district closing like we did
Correct.
last October.
Correct.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Okay.
But, any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails. Okay. Anything else on that?
I'll throw one more out there.
Okay. As long as it's dealing with the COVID-19 protocols, we're
Yep.
still on that.
I would like to make a motion to remove the mask mandate.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
No, not when my child is sitting right next to a positive case. then.
I'll go to you because you made the motion, Colin. I'll let you speak on it. I will ask, what is your criteria for removing the mask mandate?
That it is parent optional.
Okay.
That the parents decide whether or not their children are masked in school or not.
And then I'll go to the superintendent because he's the one that made the original recommendation. Why do we have a mask mandate? What are the criteria for it?
Right, so, based on the recommendations from the CDC, the DPI, and our county health department, our local nurses, and every public health division that I've been in contact with, they're all recommending universal masking in school. So that's why I made that recommendation.
Mark, how do you explain that other districts in our community are not masking and have it optional?
I would not want to go on record to explain why some are and some aren't, that they're having the same conversations we are, and I'm not in any of them. I would just articulate to you that there is a large majority of students in Wisconsin that are wearing masks to school.
Kathy?
Yeah, I do want to comment on mask wearing. I think we've all received some of the emails and stuff, and even before we received some emails from people. So tonight, like we had the mom of the deaf kids, and I do think that there are definitely times that we should be allowing for medical, what's the term I want to use?
Accommodation.
Yeah, medical accommodations for certain children. So like maybe that can be set aside for the kids with the deaf kids, although I know we have mics, and I'm
There's a
wondering why they don't
form
have
that they
mics.
take to their physician and they can.
You
have their
do have that,
physician
okay,
complete.
or
We have
like
about
maybe
30
some-
students in the district who have who
With a
are
medical
medical
excuse.
reasons.
The problem is the medical doctors are saying that they can wear a shield. And what the mother and the teachers are reporting is that the shield fogs up very quickly, and therefore it's still not effective for the child's learning.
You're talking specifically about the deaf kids or other kids?
I mean, I've heard from the deaf community.
But we do have mics within our schools. So why do these particular children, they have interpreters, but why don't we have mics for them? I'm not sure. I'm looking around Joanne too,
I
like
think-
why that is, or
so-
can we get them for
I
them?
Again, I appreciate the passion that all families that we heard tonight. I think we have to be cautious about 100% accurate information that we're hearing from people who are giving feedback, right? So students,
what I interpret she was looking for, and I believe she was looking for, is other students to not wear a mask because her kid is
Right.
not wearing a mask,
That's true.
right? That, and again, it's not, you know,
But she also cited the learning from teachers, and so
Right.
that is the part that I'm drawing on,
Right.
that may possibly we get those kids mics, so that at least if they're having issues with interpretation of what's being taught, that at least they have the,
so each of them,
The
and again,
audio.
there's co-curricular implants, each kid has an IEP, I'm not sure
Yeah,
what is
I know.
best, I think she was articulated that they're lip readers, and so it's not, we're not talking about microphones in that case, and again, I totally understand that, I mean, there's, one size doesn't always fit all, but again, that's where she's
Yeah.
coming from.
Meredith, I'll get you, but I have a question for Mark in line with what Kathy is saying. This mask requirement is for all district buildings, right? Indoors.
Yes,
What are the exemptions from that mask requirement?
so while you're eating, indoors, so obviously don't require that. If you are in a room by yourself, so if you have a staff member who's in a room by themselves with nobody else and the room can be closed, that would be another example. And then if you have a medical exemption, that would be another example.
And just speaking of activities that occur, and I'll throw out athletics because I'm involved in that. We have indoor volleyball and swimming, I think, right now.
Mhm.
Are all participants in that required to wear a mask?
So when they're in the water, like competing,
Yeah,
when they're
then they don't,
competing,
yeah.
they are. When they're not when they're competing, they're not. When they're not competing, they
On the deck.
are on the deck.
And volleyball has to wear them when they're playing?
When they're playing, when they're competing, they're not. When they're on the
Okay.
sidelines or right, they are.
Has there been any discussion to perhaps expand the exemptions from wearing a mask?
The exemptions that we are using are basic, and again, I have not created any protocols. We take the protocols from the CDC, the DPI, and our health professionals. So those are all protocols that we've said, yep, we will use those. So it's not like I'm making this or I'm making that.
So you're using those
Protocols.
protocols
recommendations.
based on the medical providers that look into infectious diseases.
Yes.
We're not making up our own exemptions or exclusions or anything like that?
No, they're
Okay.
medical exclusions, and then again, they're saying indoors, and so we're saying when you're outside, and then I guess I could say, I would have to check with our nurses to find out if the CDC has some different requirement for eating, but I don't know how you're gonna have cafeteria and wear a mask, so I can't be 100% on that one.
And when you look at when you mention our local health department, that's based on last Wednesday's statistics, correct? Because the new ones don't come out till tomorrow.
Correct, right, and I have a Monday meeting with our county, I don't know what.
Health director.
Stephanie, health director, and get
Okay.
feedback.
All right, I'll go to Meredith.
Even though we have a community that rails against equity, I highly agree with Kathy that we need to find a solution, whether that's purchasing the window masks for all of the students in those classrooms where those students are being served. Perhaps we have some funds for that. I know as I have explored those for our ELL learners, we have been exploring the purchasing of those and looking for ones that do not fog, and they're out there. So I think we need to perhaps as a district invest in that for all the children in that room so that that socialization and that lip reading is able to occur.
maybe Gears and that's for money.
Absolutely, that's a perfect fit. I would ask, I've gotten several questions and comments via email. Mark, can you tell us how many children have passed out due to masking?
Yeah, so we haven't gotten any students that we have been, notified of from the health, they haven't gone to the health room or passed out. Zero is the information our nurses gave.
And have we had any children, the other one was vomiting in their masks. Have we had any incident reports of that? Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Stacy?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, so the protocol that was followed at Lincoln, if I'm saying this correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that if you were within 3 feet of the infected person without a mask, no, with a mask, you needed a quarantine, is that correct?
So it's less than 3 feet or physical contact.
Okay, so we are allowing our volleyball students to be less than 3 feet without a mask. How is that safe?
So again, what we're trying to do is manage what's happening. We could put a mask on them, but they are physically contacting as well, like they've been in close contact. And, you know, when you're playing volleyball, you might bump into somebody. So unless we are going to eliminate that, that was the model that we used.
Is that a WIAA recommendation?
No, that's what we, the conference schools who have mask mandates have been following. So WA has no
So, but we're consistent
requirements.
with our
Our
conference
conference
in
is
that
doing the
regard.
same thing, yes. Not all of our conference, to be fair, not all of our conference schools have mask mandates.
Anybody else? Well, go ahead, Colin.
I guess I understand that the bodies are requesting masks. You know, the health department bodies, everybody has the same access to those same bodies of, you know, hearing the information from the Department of Health. I mean, it's been such a common topic that everybody follows those things. There's a lot of other bodies that say alternate things as well. So it does kind of boil down to what entity you listen to, what medical doctors you listen to, which nurses, it goes on and on. Everybody drafts their information from different areas. And that's a great thing. So we're basing a recommendation off of what they say. And it's for strictly Manitowoc Public School District people while they're on the grounds and in attendance. The only thing is with that, in the spirit of what is being mandated, is when they leave, none of those things are still being required. In fact, I mean, like I went out to dinner last night. There's 4 administrators from Lincoln High School. They weren't wearing masks. They come into schools. Now what? Same thing. So what is this protecting? It's not. You go to Walmart, nobody's wearing them.
I am.
Okay, and that is your choice. But my point is in this is that this is only the Band-Aid of that duration of time. That is still going on, and that is still out there. The exposure is still there. It is still being had. So you are preventing maybe that at school, but all those same individuals have those same exposures elsewhere in the community. And it is still taking place. And there are still people that do feel, and there is a feeling that it impedes their activities, it impedes their learning, it impedes their focus, it impedes their attention. And as a result of that fear and that attempt to manage that time or what's going on during that time, you're sacrificing all the things that are going on in attempt to manage what's going on during that time. So logically, you're not doing anything, you're not solving anything, only for that duration of time. Now, on the flip side of all those things that are being sacrificed, we are still on the hook for all those things too. So in the instance that this does affect, like some people have stated, health, or there's a Legionnaire's outbreak. Legionnaire's disease has a 20% mortality rate. Now what? We're going to be on the hook for that liability and that problem that we are then pushing and putting forth. And it is a direct result of those masks. There is actually studies that are out there that in those masks, when you're dealing with children, they've taken swabs, thrown them into the petri dishes, and what's been grown has been some pretty scary stuff. And these are little children. Little children don't care about sterility. All of us have, encountered little children, and they are not being treated how an adult would.
700,000 dead, God, and how many have died from masks?
But and to finish my point,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
it's okay. It's a heated thing. I understand. A lot of people have very strong opinions on this stuff. But to finish my point on that, we are still saying that those things that are occurring don't matter. We're ignoring that those things do occur and saying that we are going to have a mask covering because we are scared about this happening. Even though that this still could happen, even though these things are occurring, and these germs are appearing in masks for little children. All that information is being ignored for this. And I don't agree with that at all.
Meredith.
Yeah, I just have a couple of comments to that. It was indicated that there's people out to dinner. Those people have the opportunity to be vaccinated and most likely are, given that we have a 70% vaccination rate in our district. Our children under 12 do not have that opportunity. I would also indicate that I know children who have cancer and they're in the hospital masked all the time. And guess what? It's not affecting anything. They have their pulse ox thing on there all the time. It's not affecting them. If that was the case, I think our surgeons and our doctors, we would have heard about that a long time ago, that masking affects oxygen intake. I don't buy into that, nor do I buy into a video that was put out by a chiropractor.
Just to clarify the vaccination stuff, I don't want to get into the vaccinations because we're not talking about that.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing that up. I'm not putting that on an agenda.
Right, no, I'm not.
I'm staying away from that, but these are the latest statistics from Manitowoc County, from our health department. 52.6% of all people in Manitowoc County are vaccinated. Now, those numbers are skewed because in the age group 65 and plus, it's 84.9. In the age group 55 to 64, it's 68.4. When we look at the age groups that would affect our children in schools, and I don't have any data that talks about Lincoln High School. We can't get that. We don't know that. Children 12 to 15, 32.7%. 16 to 17, 41.4% of those would be students that are eligible to get the vaccine. Now, most parents are going to fall in the 18 to 44 category, right? 45.3%, 44.5, and 49.9. And then 45 to 54 is 55.5, but that would reduce the number of parents. So when you talk about people being vaccinated, they're not in our county. And it's likely, based on what we've discussed at the Board of Health, is that this number isn't going to go a whole lot higher, other than when younger children are eligible. The statistics for those age groups, those are people who just aren't going to get vaccinated anymore. And that's just the way it is. So, but I don't want to get too deep into this vaccination thing because maybe somebody else wants it, but I'm not going there with it. So
Well, we're already
we're staying
doing
away
it
from it.
because we're treating kids differently.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as the vaccination goes, I don't want to get into that. That's up to whatever they want to do. I'm not checking that. I'm not asking for that. Let's stick with the mask thing. Stay away from the Kathy.
Yeah, Colin, I understand what you're saying because I myself, just walking around and whether it be Walmart or wherever I am, very, very few people are walking around with masks. Almost everybody doesn't wear a mask. So there's not an hour that really goes by that I don't question what we're doing. And again, I say, I'm not sure what the right answer is, but it's like, there's so many people floating around out there without masks all the time that I guess I get what you're saying. Here we are at a small period of time. Those kids are exposed to all those people. They just come in the building. So it's again why I vacillate all the time about, I don't know what the right answer is, because I understand the point that you're making, is what I'm saying. I don't know.
Anybody else?
I think there's a large
Meredith?
difference about passing people in Walmart. That's not a close contact when you talk about those things. As opposed to sitting in a classroom where I'm literally this close and it's you and you may be COVID positive.
Well, and that's a good point, because I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of when we quarantine the kids, we talk about close contact, it's not literally just because Meredith and I are sitting next to one another, but isn't it about an exposure time also? Isn't that
15
part of the equation? So like today, we had that woman who said her son, could come in to school for 10 days. And that, or somebody said that anyway, and then probably all these other kids didn't have to, but they probably weren't sitting within that distance for that period of time. And again, I get all of it. I'm just very,
I guess,
trying to weigh it.
I just wanted to touch Walmart, fine, one example. We just had the Manitowoc County Fair. I was there for a whole week. Manitowoc County Fair was, wall-to-wall people. We do contract tracing, we would have seen, would that have been associated with that event?
Contact tracing, not contract.
But my point being is that
just for the minutes,
all of those people that would have been at the Manitowoc County Fair, wall to wall, having the same parameters that were just discussed, and we still, those kids could have gone there. It really is, life is occurring beyond Manitowoc Public School District without masks.
But there's a choice to be at the fair. There's not a choice to not be.
That's true.
and a lot of that's outdoor activities.
Sure.
We're talking indoor. Anybody else? I mean, this could go on.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
that we don't have to be right. What we need to do is to let people decide, like all of us get to decide everything we do every day. And so the parents need to decide what's best for their kids. It's not about what's doing right. It's about what's giving the control and the power to the parents to make that decision.
But that decision
Hold on.
Sorry.
We always need to be right as best as we can. I made that comment before and I'll stick with that. As an elected official, you always need to do the best you can to be right when you make your decisions. If you're going to do it as a popularity contest, it's going to be a crapshoot. Every time people don't like it, they're going to come out with their signs and with their stuff and yell at us, and we're going to have to give in because the majority of people that are talking to us are going to tell us this is the way we want it. Who's in control of the district? Obviously, the parents vote, the voters vote, but they elect us to make decisions. When you're elected, the responsibility is on you to make a decision. And as I said, it's not always going to be popular, but it's got to be to the best of your information to do it right. So I would really object to thinking that we don't have to be right. We just got to go with whatever you feel is a majority.
Well, that's not what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, that's what you said. You clearly said that.
That was your perception of what I said.
No, it was not my perception. Those were your words.
It's like, pass the buck to the parents.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you restate it.
No,
But that's the words that
you
you
guys
use.
already have your preconceived ideas about this anyway.
I have
So do
no
you.
biases
So
or
do you.
preconceived
So-
notions that I come in here with. I'm allowing everyone to
What you're not
to
doing is
discuss-
you're not listening to the parents.
I
You're
listen
not
to every
listening.
word they said, every single
You're
word they
not.
said.
Who's a
Otherwise,
parent
you
in this room who
feel
has a child in the
different.
district?
I went over some.
Am I being listened to? Not necessarily. Who are all those emails that we continually get who choose not to come here and be berated by that crowd? The people who have spoken to be pro-masks have been ridiculed, have been threatened. That's not okay. So they choose not to come. And I think that's important to recognize that those are a pocket. They are not everyone. And I have to say this, Dave, I'm very offended that you all are choosing to break our ethical policy by not masking and following
Right.
school rules.
Yeah.
It's infuriating to me that school rules are not being followed.
It shows that you two are together and the rest of us are
Does
separate.
that show that you guys are together and we're not?
We have a mask
Absolutely not. I'm
mandate.
choosing to
Okay.
I
It's
don't
a
know
mask
how-
mandate. We were to come together as a board and obey a mask mandate. You two
supposed to
chose
obey.
not to.
I'm supposed to obey
I'm a rule follower.
It's a mandate.
that I did not vote on. I did not get to decide.
Whatever,
I
Colin.
was told by
Oh,
the superintendent.
Whatever, you're just spinning, you're just like a.
Hang
Hang on,
rabbit.
hang on, hang on.
Wait, can I say something?
Hang on, no, I just want to respond to Colin. I hear you, Colin. You don't like it. I get it. But when you drove here, did you obey all the traffic signals? You didn't vote on those. You didn't vote on any of them. Do you realize how many mandates you go through every day that you don't get to vote on, including the seatbelt mandate, by the way?
Right.
You don't have to wear it though. I mean, that's up to you.
Mhm.
But there's a penalty if you're caught for not wearing it.
Sure.
It's the same thing with driving the speed limit, stopping at the stop sign. All of those things are mandates that you didn't get to vote on. There's hundreds of them that we have to accept every day that I'm not going to list them, that we can't think of. So when you choose to violate a rule, that's up to you. But it's a violation of it. Accept that.
I do.
It is. And I didn't call you out on it, and I didn't say anything
I appreciate
to
it.
anybody that was in the crowd because you made that choice. But you got to realize that it's not just because you don't like it because you didn't vote on it. That's a very poor excuse. But the fact that you don't like it, you intentionally violated, okay, that's where we're at. I don't want to go any further with that, so just leave that. I don't want to get into an argument about it.
Fair.
I get your point.
Let's
and
just
I get
vote.
your
I'd like to
point.
call the question.
Well, then we got to do the same thing. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I won't. I withdraw my second. Go ahead.
I just am trying to say that.
Because we're in discussion.
The issue for me too, and I tell you how much I vacillate, is when we're talking about masking our kids and sending them to school and making that choice. I don't feel as though we're making that choice for our own kids. We're making that choice for everybody else's kids. And that's the problem that I have with not wearing masks. You know what I mean? Because supposedly, some of the things that we've been told are that masks don't necessarily protect you, they protect other people. But again, I just want to put that out.
Okay, I'm going to end discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask that we vote on the motion to end the mask requirement. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No.
No.
Motion fails. Okay. All right, let's move on to the superintendent's evaluation.
You abstain.
I abstain from that because I
Oh,
don't know where I am. Sorry, guys. Yeah,
I will put together an ad hoc committee. I will have this on the agenda for our next meeting. So
you'll have one on the
it's not
meeting.
gonna go away, the COVID-19 protocols. We'll go through it again next meeting.
Oh,
I don't think it's something that we should just let go of indefinitely. Things may change. We have a report coming the next 2 Wednesdays before our next meeting. We'll see. Okay, superintendent evaluation, where do you want to go with that?
Superintendent's evaluation. I don't want to get into another, dogfight on this. I just would like people to, read the policy. I have copies of the policy here. Yeah, sure I have. Can't keep them up.
You guys okay if I dismiss the directors?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's nothing.
You
Here is the copy of the policy. I
guys
mean,
are-
we had
thanks, guys. Thank you.
a lot of
Could
discussion.
have said that last.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm bumbling here, but I did make copies. And, I don't see them now. I'll just say that the policy
Yeah, you can-
is sort of self-implementing.
I can help you. Just
I
spread
don't
the legs
know. Do you have a copy, Dave?
of the
I'm sure I
policy.
do.
Yeah, I mean, I have I've made copies of it, yeah.
If you give me the policy number, I will make copies. Okay? You know, I'll talk to the number.
Oh. Like 2210?
15.
Does that sound right? 22. I can look it up.
I'll look at it.
The policy is 1240. And the policy says, the Board of Education believes it's essential to evaluate the superintendent, et cetera. So we chose to make that evaluation annual. This is policy adopted in on March 23, 2021. And then it goes on to say, you know, the formative evaluation, that's one of the things we really got hung up on at the personnel committee meeting. I don't think that anybody had read the policy that, you know, or recently. So the formative evaluation, to informally, it says, the word is informally, assess the superintendent's progress towards established goals and objects. Completion of the formative evaluation shall occur no later than the second board meeting of January unless expressly modified by the board. The formative evaluation may include, and that's also reiterated in the policy that we, whatever you call it, Dave, the process that we adopted at our meeting in August. And so I don't see anything to debate about that. I mean, there was discussion like, oh, we've got to do a heavy load by January because the superintendent comes up for the renewal of his contract in January 31st. I don't think we can do anything more than what the policy says should be done, right? So the formative evaluation to informally assess the superintendent's progress towards established goals and objectives. Completing the formative evaluation shall occur no later than the second board meeting of January. So I think that doesn't have to be set into motion yet. I mean, there will be a calendar of what we do. But what it involves is the active participation of each board member, the review of any available midterm data or artifact provided by the superintendent, a completion of assessments on a prepared standard form, including narrative comments completed by individual board members. That doesn't have to be done until November or December, you know, because it says in the policy no later than the second board meeting in January. Okay? And it says the term is an informal assessment. This is not like, the killing of the bull here. This is like a preliminary assessment. The summative thing we can get into later, but we don't have to do anything to implement that policy at this point.
Well, Gary, you mentioned the contract of the superintendent. He's on a 2-year contract, and that isn't coming up in January.
Okay, well,
it'll be 2023,
okay.
right?
Yes.
That was from July 1st of this year to 2023. So we won't be considering a renewal of it in January until 2023.
Okay.
Well,
I mean,
no, you have to do something.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
it
You can do nothing.
the contract
Yeah.
still goes through
Yes.
July or June 30th of 2023, regardless of
Okay.
what we do. We always, well, you're
And the deal
essentially
is
an
that
employee at will. We
when-
can take any action at any time, so. So that's not a crucial issue there. Because we already have a 2-year contract? or we
Okay,
have to-
okay, well, I wasn't on that side of it anyway. I
Oh,
mean,
okay,
you know,
whatever, just so,
I
I'm
thought
just
that,
clarifying what you
the
mentioned.
evaluation exists independent of that. It may be used, it may be considered, but it's not for that.
So what are we gonna do now?
But the other thing is that you can't just use any criteria you want. Conducting the evaluation will be consistent consistent with the Wisconsin Professional Standards of Educational Leaders and the job description of the superintendent. It can't be like, I don't like the clothes he wears. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know why we had such a long discussion, but I think it was because there wasn't clarity of understanding on what the policy actually
So what do you want us to do here
Now, what we
tonight?
want to do now is the policy that we adopted said, we will select, there will be 2 specific goals that will be adopted that will be focused on in this evaluation throughout this academic year, okay? One selected by the superintendent, whatever he thinks is a worthy goal, a high priority goal, whatever you want to call it, to focus on. I mean, there can be more than 2 goals, but there have to be 2 specific, okay? And the other one selected by the board. So I would like to move that we now take up the discussion of what goal we want to have focused on. And as long as I have the floor, my sense is that the staff survey and quite a few pieces of information that I've been getting are saying that there's a real inconsistency and a real failure in many ways in kind of disciplinary policy. I've never seen any kind of disciplinary policy, and I think that, that's a tough one again, because, each case is a separate case, and each case is a complex one, perhaps, except, of course, when they're bringing guns to school. And then we have a hearing and we expel. So I would like to move that a special focus this year that will be used also in the evaluation be to do something to improve student disciplinary behavior and student behavior through a consistent or at least a knowable approach to handling it.
Okay, I guess let's have some input on what you believe should be, this is the board's goal for the superintendent. Okay, anybody want to speak to that? Go ahead, Colin.
I like one thing that I've heard a lot is there's a significant feeling of a gap in discipline. So having discipline on as one of the goals, absolutely. I think that should be a very significant focus. We've heard about that, honestly, since I started on the board, as one of the things that I think Kathy and that's one thing you've echoed. We've seen this more and over and over and over again. In fact, that was one of the things that was highlighted in the district as one of the lower areas. I'm full on board with discipline being a issue that I would like to see tackled.
We do have a policy on it.
Right, and I understand that, but I mean, having that
like a focus on
absolutely.
Focus on that policy.
Yeah,
Or better focus on it.
Better focus, because I think that there is a feeling that discipline is not being addressed like it should be.
Student discipline.
Sure.
And there's a lot of stuff in this policy that is probably what you all want to see happen. I'm not seeing anything really, conform to reasonable standards of socially acceptable behavior, respect the person and property of others, respect the right of others, preserve the degree of order necessary, and you know, maybe you just don't think that's happening as well as it should, right? All this stuff in here is, so we have a policy, but you'd like to focus on that policy. Okay.
We need a behavior plan. I mean, a policy within our.
Well, we have a
That's great,
policy.
But our kids,
We have a
our
policy.
kids need to understand what is expected of them and what's unacceptable, and there needs to be accountability for that. And we need to, I think, empower our teachers to have some of the abilities to make those decisions and handle discipline within their own classroom. And if it cannot be handled there, then it needs to be, you know, administration should be called for certain things, you know, or if they feel like they're tied up or for what other reason. There's be lots of circumstances where that would be the case, but behavior is definitely an issue in our schools. And I say that because that's a big part of why I ran for this board and chose not to be a substitute teacher instead. So, because it needs to be addressed. When
Does
I'm in a
anybody
classroom
disagree
with
with the
23
behavior
kids and
stuff we're talking about?
21 are not doing what they're supposed to, that's an issue.
How are we gonna go about then achieving this goal?
Well,
I mean, we got a goal, but you gotta have.
We're gonna focus on it the whole year. We don't have to decide it tonight. I mean.
No, you don't have to decide it, but you better have a plan of attack, right? Because this is a goal. This isn't just, you know, something that's up there that, I mean, anytime you want to achieve a goal, you gotta work
I know
towards it,
that,
right?
Dave. I
How are we
know
gonna do that?
I think it
mean-
needs to include teachers.
At least, let's have a starting point.
How about I work with the chair of the personnel committee and coming up with like a draft goal that I would then present to the board for their consideration.
Draft goal for the behavior you need
Yeah,
issue or
yeah, like here,
discipline?
because it's got,
Let's at least have
there's gotta
start the
be-
process here.
There's got to, if. that's
Otherwise,
what
it's
the
gonna sit here
board-
for a couple
if the
more
board
meetings
wants
and
as a
then we're
goal,
not gonna do anything.
We have to have some kind of like, what is
Sure,
successful
exactly.
like.
Right,
you know?
well, that's true. So
Exactly.
like you need to have like previous numbers versus.
But yeah, I would just work, I would like to touch on it.
Okay, go ahead, Colin.
So I think a behavioral plan, like you had suggested, you know, we need to set expectations. So we have specific expectations. Those are required. Then, you know, almost like how companies have mission statements. You know, we have a mission statement towards behavior. You know, this is our new focus at Manitowoc Public School District. We're going to be looking at this and focusing on that. And almost like a mission statement, it can even go out to all the parents that this is our new expectations. We're going to be following these.
Should be fine.
Give clear, it could even be a policy manual that's sent home to the families of these are the behavioral expectations. If they deviate from them, these are the ramifications. It can be spelled out very plainly to each student. And maybe a renewed focus. We have the existing policies in place already. All it is just simply letting people know that we are focusing on those. And I think that bringing the parents into that focus, sometimes that's the gap. It's just the parents are not engaged, reminding them that we need to have that engagement from them as well.
I think that's all good. I think that's all good. I think that's not what we're doing now. We're not making a plan right now. I mean, Dave, I think, you know, you got the horse way the hell before the car.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
you know, the fact is we just are picking a goal to focus on. The superintendent will pick a second goal to focus on and will inform us as to what that might be. We may not have decided that tonight, but we, I think, to get the process moving off dead nothing, is that and I'm gonna make a motion that the goal for this year, selected by the Manitowoc Public School Board of Education, be the goal to improve discipline and to diminish disruptive student behavior. That's, I don't know if you got all that.
I second that.
Okay, there's a second.
I need a second. You said
Is
that?
it actually a?
Then I'll open it for
actually an
discussion.
actionable thing?
Okay,
I
now
would-
we can do this.
So if that is the goal that we vote on, what is the next step with that?
Then we start to develop how we're gonna implement that.
When do we do
How we're
that?
gonna pursue that.
When are you gonna do
When do
that?
we do that?
And we're gonna do that through the, you know, first of all, through the personnel committee and then through the board itself. the board will have all sorts of things to say about what we propose. And I would start, my thought would be to start with what Mark said. That he would meet with the chair of the personnel committee. Since the personnel committee somehow by default or ad hocly is now the steward of this evaluation. So to meet with the superintendent, to get his take on things, to have him try to help inform the committee, that we discuss it on the committee, and that we then discuss it as a board and say, okay, this is sort of what we want to do. And I think what you said to really have a policy, to have a statement of what's expected and what's not tolerated. I mean, it's not so black and white, and it's a difficult job. And send it to the parents and make it official would be step number 2.
I just don't want it to go months without doing anything. That's my
I
concern.
won't let it go months.
I think step number 1 needs to be, we say, yep, this is the goal. Then Mark, you do your thing with how is that goal measurable? How are we going to gauge that for next year when we do have that
Right,
evaluation?
right.
And then how is that going to be put together with a team of people? It should certainly not be all of us, like just us. It should include others too, but that's part of what Mark has to
I mean,
weigh in
Mark
on,
has
right?
access to all of that.
Like, how can this be changed?
And we do have multiple policies that address student behavior. So it's not like it's been ignored. It just
Okay.
perhaps
Okay.
what I hear is we need to address it in a more effective fashion than what it's been addressed in the past, perhaps.
Right.
But that's what you'll do. But like I said, I just don't want this to keep bouncing around and then we never get around to it because we got other things. And we already know we're being distracted from many things right now, and that will continue. So, so I guess I'm telling you, get on it and do something. I'll vote in favor of it, but I want to see something done.
Can we attribute maybe like deadlines and timelines maybe to it so that we can ensure then that it's going along at a specific pace? I think that might be, kind of hearing.
What I'd really like to have.
Yeah, I mean, when
anybody
let's
can
have it
come
by
to the-
X date,
anybody
let's
can
have it,
come to the
and then
meeting.
we have moving action and expectations for each other.
When does personnel meet again? Do you have a meeting scheduled?
No, we don't.
And do you plan on meeting before our next meeting, or would this come back up in October?
I don't know. Honestly, I've got to tell you, I am going to be in Canada for 2 weeks visiting people who are old, who I haven't seen in 3 years. And I've got a lecture to do, public lecture to do on the 23rd. And I'm going to be leaving town on the 24th. And I'm not coming back until October the 6th.
Okay.
So.
Could I just make a recommendation?
Go ahead,
So
go ahead.
I have understood what the board is looking for. Maybe rather than trying to get the committee together, Carrie seems to kind of be the one carrying the torch here with this and seems passionate. Maybe him and I can connect, whether that's virtually or phone or whatever, and kind of work through some things so that we can provide an update at least on here's what we've got done at the next meeting. I don't have a vision of what this looks like right now, right? I can work on that.
Well, this is a board goal, so it doesn't have to go. This is one of those instances where it doesn't have to go through that personnel committee.
Right.
As a recommendation to us because it's a board goal. So, okay.
And I can bring it to you, but
I'll buy
I
that.
just want to make sure that I get something together, get some feelings on what it looks like. And again,
That'll work for you, Terry?
what does success look like?
Good.
And then the board can, because it's your goal, you can amend, adopt, change, wordsmith, whatever it looks like.
Okay.
And I'll work on it.
Anybody got a question on the motion? It's our goal. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay. We move on. Then what's next, Terry?
That's it.
We have superintendent's goal, Mark's goal.
Yeah, I'll work with him. I put some drafts of some things in here that I sent to you because it wasn't really a board document yet. So I just want to make sure that I had some ideas. I guess I would articulate that it's challenging to just have one goal, right? When you think about that, and I continue to look at student learning as the goal. And it's difficult, as I work with the directors and I talk about, there's not a person in this district that's farther away from the classroom than the superintendent, right? So there's a lot of layers between there. But ultimately, our directors then have the next layer. And so we do have some conversations. We have some milestones of success of which we're making some updates to. And so I'm looking at opportunities to lead that continued development of those departmental goals. When, if you're on a curriculum committee, you heard all the goals and things that our teachers were, our principals were doing in the buildings to help support, in some cases, some of those areas of federal accountability that we have to improve on. So again, I would share that information and what I'm doing and what my thoughts are with Carrie. You can kind of look at what that would be, but my focus is going to be in that terms academic. And again, the goal likely isn't going to be Lincoln's ACT composite is moving from this to this. It's going to be, this is how we're going to support the building-based learning goals to support all learning. And again, because that, again, and I spent lots of time trying to create goals and edit them and look on nationally what superintendent's goals are. And generally they fall in one of those, right? Board superintendent relationships. That's one of them. It's function within fiscal relationship, like are we doing things financially? It's public and community relations, and then it's academic. And so I guess I would lean towards, that's what I want to try to work towards.
I think that makes for two really strong goals. You have behavior and academics.
Right. What else is there?
Okay, let's move on to new business.
That's not over.
Finance and budget has a travel request. Any discussion on that?
Motion approved.
I make,
Well, that-
Second.
that one gets approved through the committee, so we just have discussion. So that's all.
No.
And
Sorry.
so that makes it even easier on us, but we do need to vote to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Personnel committee has 2 additional positions. I would ask that we take these separately. Special education teacher at McKinley Academy Virtual Charter School. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I don't know, you got the info on that. It was in the minutes.
Yeah, I've got it.
It's like
I wasn't at
there's
the
a whole
meeting.
lot of students that need that service.
Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, that is,
I'm opposed.
oh, okay. So 6-1, or Colin, did you approve it?
Pardon,
Pretty tough to have you vote after the fact,
honestly
right?
spaced on it, I'm sorry, I've been thinking so much about it. I'll vote, yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, then the EL teacher at McKinley Academy Virtual Charter School. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we have other business. The WASB Regional Workshop is out at Millhome and Kiel on October 5th. I think you all got an email that there's some restrictions in place for that. Is anyone planning on attending that? I know I've attended in the past. I'm willing to attend it this year. I will, yeah. I actually have that date open.
What are the restrictions?
Well, you're gonna have to be fully vaccinated or
Negative
a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours.
Is it both or?
Or
And then they're gonna move some of the in-person pre-meeting workshops to an online format. And I would guess this is subject to change as well, based on whatever they decide to follow. Just so you know.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, so
Yep, okay.
when do you need to know by, Lori?
Um,
I mean, I said I'd go and Kathy said.
I will probably do the registration this week if everyone has decided if they are or aren't going to attend.
And what's the time on that?
I don't have-
In the evening, and this one doesn't say, well, you know, if they're gonna go with virtual with some of that, it might start later, Mark.
let me just see if I can find it.
Let's not make it that difficult here. I mean,
Sorry,
we have
I'm looking,
enough of
I'm on their piece, but I don't see the start
Yeah,
time.
of course,
when you're looking for it.
Yeah.
I can let you know, Meredith, how about that?
Thank you, I would appreciate
Sure,
that. I
absolutely.
think I'm open, but I just
Okay.
need to know the time.
Okay, then the other thing is future meeting dates. Will we need to meet on September 21st? It would be, or no, September 28th, right? Would we need to meet then?
I am not able to make that date. First thing ever, and I cannot be. there.
I just, so you know, the next meeting, I will continue to put the COVID-19 protocols on there as information and possible action. I'll try to get that ad hoc committee together. I guess it'd be a good idea to do it before because, and they can't vote, but they can make a recommendation in ad hoc committee, so. Do we need to meet that? We probably should then.
Yeah, there's a few other things we could do, but. you know,
I would like to meet so that we can hopefully approve our educational standards that were not approved tonight.
And that's gonna go through the curriculum committee, right?
Thursday.
Okay. Well, if you can get through it, then it'll be on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you.
Where are we gonna meet? Are we meeting here or are we meeting in the boardroom
or.
for the next meeting?
I have no problem meeting in the boardroom. If things get out of hand, we need just to take the appropriate action, but I'm not gonna run and hide.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, I guess, and it depends on what kind of response we get from the public in the next couple of weeks. There may be, it may lead me to believe that it's not a safe environment, but if other than that, I would plan on meeting in the regular boardroom on the 28th, at least for now.
Okay.
So anything else?
12 noon.
What's that?
Is that at noon?
Yeah, at noon, yeah.
And the Budget and Finance Committee has a meeting on September 22nd at 5:30, I think we said. We changed it to 4.
Does Building and Grounds have
Something like that.
anything?
Oh, I'm thinking of
Yes, we do.
personnel.
We have one scheduled.
You have
No,
one
At 4
scheduled?
o'clock, sorry.
October 1st, right?
Yep.
And did I miss anybody? Are we good with that with
Personnel?
meetings?
We met last week, so. I'll touch base with you, but.
Yeah, and Carrie's not gonna be available to meet, at least in person.
Dave, what about this committee that we formed? Executive.
Yeah, I'll get to you.
Okay.
There's just stuff going on and then that gets in the way.
Yeah, I get it. All right.
I'll get back to you as to when we could meet. All right, then I would entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
Motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I did.